Okay, the secret to changing your life without using any gimmicks. The secret to changing your life without using any gimmicks whatsoever. That is what we're going to talk about today. But, first, please send me your validation so that I can inhale it into my nostrils and down to the depths of my soul. Send said validation by subscribing to the YouTube channel. Hit the little notification bell so you can get brand new videos the moment they come out. All other platforms, please like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends so that they can hear about the value that this content provides. Okay. The secret to changing your life is very simple. You know, a lot of people in the self-improvement space, they like to dance around the topic. Everyone's always talking about the little productivity hacks, the little mental mindset tricks, all of this nonsense, when the reality to changing your life, the reality to all of this self-improvement stuff is very simple and straightforward. And I call it a secret because my whole philosophy around self-improvement is that if you execute on really obvious, straightforward concepts, it looks like you have some secret superpower, right? It looks like I'm very productive and I get so much done, but really I focus on a small handful of things and do them really well. And one of those things is the secret to changing your life that I'm about to tell you. Are you ready? Okay. The secret to changing your life is having an objective view of your current circumstances. That's it. The secret to changing your life is finally looking at your life head on, seeing what your circumstances are like, and seeing if you are okay with them. Most people, no matter what, they just dance around the way that their life is really going. They have all of these different distractions to keep them from looking at their life objectively. You have your Netflix and your drinks and all these different little things people use, video games, whatever, to distract themselves. And you tell yourselves all these little half-truths, these rationalizations, these lies. Oh, my job is okay. Relationships, marriages are hard work. I'm just, everything's okay. I'm content, blah, 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 blah. The secret to changing your life is to realize when things are not going the way that you want them to go. The secret to changing your life is coming to that realization that, oh my gosh, oh my goodness, I'm wasting my life. I don't like my job. I don't like my relationship. I don't like the level of spiritual contentment and happiness that I have. I don't like my physical fitness. I don't like the trajectory of where my life is going, and I need to change that ASAP, right? You have to put a level of urgency into changing your life, and most people don't have the urgency to change their life because they do a good enough job of tricking themselves and convincing themselves that what they're doing is okay. You do a good enough job of tricking yourself that everything is going to be okay when it's not. Every single day of your life, you make these tiny little concessions. You don't work on something meaningful to you that day. You do waste time that day. You go through the motions that day. And then it piles up, and then, all of a sudden you have a midlife crisis. All of a sudden you realize your life is going downhill when it's been going downhill for a long time. And so the real secret to changing your life is to stop dead in your tracks and understand the situation at hand. In my case, I tend to paint a pretty, almost unnecessarily cruel picture of the average life. And I do that because that's the way that I view that life. I don't think that anyone who's living that way is inherently a bad person. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with living that way. But when put through the prism of what I expect out of myself and projecting it onto others, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It's like, are you really content? Are you really content with your financial situation, living paycheck to paycheck? Are you really content that when you go to the restaurant, you have to look You can't order the fancy steak and lobster dinner that you really want. You can't treat yourself. You got to look at the middle tier options, even when you're going out to eat, which is supposed to be a festive occasion. Are you really content? You can take a vacation 2 weeks out of the year, maybe, and that you have to ask? That you have to ask permission to go and do this? Are you really content that spending a third of your life doing something that you really don't want to do? Are you really content with that? I focus on that work one a lot. Are you really content with spending a third of your waking hours doing anything less than something you really enjoy? Like, you don't necessarily have to love your work, but you should at least enjoy it to some degree. It's a third of your life. So I ask these questions with that little sarcastic tone to kind of get you to think. Are you really happy in your relationships, from romantic to friendships? Are you around the people you want to be with, or are you just, kind of settling? Unfortunately, marriage is the perfect microcosm for this settling phenomenon. It's like, marriages should be work. How much work should they be? People don't ask that. How much work should it be to be with someone? How much of a fight and stressful situation should it be to be in a relationship with someone? People end up in relationships. They're not happy. They're settling. They're cemented in the relationship for so long. Like, are you really content with, being with somebody for 40 years, getting to the point where you have sex once a month, maybe just on your birthday, and you have this low-level refrigerator hum of anxiety where both of you kind of want out, but you have all these hooks, kids, mortgage, all this stuff kind of binding you together in this codependent mess. Like, are you really happy with that? Are you really happy with the friends you have surrounding yourself? Are they really helping you level up? Or, are you and the crew just, there for each other to complain about work and, chug down IPAs and watch football or gossip or whatever it is? You know what I'm saying? Like, are you really content with this situation? And people don't take the time to look at all the different aspects of their life and how they're interwoven together and being honest about what they want from life. I wrote an article once about, things people don't admit they want from life. We don't admit that we want an ideal partner. We don't admit that we want an ideal financial situation. We don't admit that we want an ideal network. We don't admit that we want to level up and accomplish a certain level of dreams, not for the worldly status, but for the feelings that come with improving yourself to the point where you've done something that few other people can do. Like, we just don't admit these things. And we cast it off and say that you're selfish for wanting these things. Or we have this veneer of modesty where we pretend we don't want these things. And, out of all the people who talk about it, I'd say maybe 10% of the quote-unquote content crowd are actually truly content. You can just kind of tell. And I've talked about this before, but I always do this little trick where I have conversations with people and I ask them what they want out of life. And first they give me the cop-out answer. They're like, I'm doing a good job. I'm happy. Just be content, have a nice house, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm like, no. What do you really want to do? Like, be honest. Like, if you could do anything you wanted without any chance of failure, you knew you would pull it off, what would you do? Then their eyes light up. The answer becomes totally different than the one they just gave. And they tell me their real dream. Just think about your life in general. Are you happy? Are you happy with what you have achieved in your life? Like, I get it on one hand. This whole self-improvement deal can be, you can become a slave to your ambitions in one sense. You can become a slave to your desires. Eastern philosophy talks about the fact that desire is the root of all suffering and that you should focus on the present moment and that you're haunted by your past mistakes and you're anxious about a future that may or may not come. Like, I get all of that. And in a part of my life, I practice those same teachings, but there's balance. Like, I'm sorry, I do not believe people just want to go meditate in a cave and live in the present moment all the time. It's not what reality shows me. And while achieving your biggest dreams in life, it doesn't fill your void completely. It doesn't make you totally happy, but it just teaches you certain lessons about yourself that you are unable to learn without going through the process. Jim Rohn talks about this. Success is more about the person you become, in the process of trying to get these outcomes than the outcomes themselves. And most people trick themselves into believing they don't want these outcomes, and they never face their lives up front. And the hardest part about facing your life, or avoiding facing your life up front, is that you always kind of have to deal with that low level feeling. You always have to deal with that feeling that you're not quite doing enough, you're settling, and kind of the slow torture of settling is sometimes worse than harsh upfront pain, right? Like, you can deal, like, if life just throws you way off track, like you get in a major accident and you're disabled, you have some major financial downfall, you lose something major, like, it just forces you to deal with it. And so ironically, most people come out of those situations okay, and they come out of those situations with almost a newfound sense of appreciation for life. But if you don't have those experiences that shock you out of complacency and you don't do it for yourself, most people just run out the clock in their life and they die. And we all pretend like it's okay. We all have these conversations. I call them, the Mary and Bill conversations. Mary and Bill are at the barbecue. They're talking about the weather. They're talking about sports. They're talking about politics. They're talking about basically anything that's just filler content and not real. And we interact with each other on the superficial level. We live our lives on the superficial level. And everyone kind of ignores the elephant in the room that most people are wasting their life. It's like this long running joke that everybody knows, but few people ever do anything about. So how do you become one of those people who does something about it, who actually, not just changes your own life, but becomes the type of person where you live and you set an example for others so that maybe they can escape their traps too? How do you do that? For me, it's just, when I started this whole process, I started doing the work with just the fundamental understanding that me continuing to be the same is not okay. I kind of amplified and even overstated the consequences of living this average lifestyle. It's not that the average lifestyle is bad, but you almost have to ramp up and create a higher level of paranoia and fear about staying the same. And your mind runs primarily on fear anyways. So for me, what I try to do, I don't try to fight the way that my brain is wired. I don't try to fight the fact that my brain and my ego are wired to avoid fear. So I just change what I'm afraid of. I change being afraid of rejection and embarrassment and the obstacles that come with trying to fulfill a dream, and I replace them with the fear of being one of the people that I don't want to be like, being like people that on the surface they're very good people, and even deep down they're very good people, but you look at the outcomes they get and it's just not acceptable to me. I'm deathly afraid of dying and not having put as much of myself out there, not putting my chips on the table, so to speak, and having all that wasted potential. I'm afraid of getting to an old age and looking back on my life and being like, what the hell have I done with, maximum 80 to 100 years, which is nothing. I'm afraid of those things. And, I've told the story before. I was dead broke. I was working at a job I hated. I was on felony probation. I was selling drugs. I was depressed. I had nothing. I had completely ruined my life. And from that position, I could have decided to settle into a groove. I could have said, you know what? I can continue to get like these mediocre $15 an hour jobs, kind of skate by. I could go to the bar on weekends, get drunk, have my little weed, watch some movies, Netflix, and I could get by with that. I knew I could get by with that. But I decided that was not okay. I decided that doing that would be disrespectful to the other me who actually had potential to be a lot more. And I knew I had potential to be great. Even when I was a loser, I knew I had the potential to be great, and it took me a while to get there. Don't get me wrong. So don't beat yourself up if you don't bring yourself to this point immediately. But you got to realize that staying the same is not okay. You have to realize that living your life anything short than at least giving maximum effort towards your goals is disrespectful to yourself. It's disrespectful to the person that you could be. You have to treat it seriously. In many ways, your self-improvement is a life or death situation. From your finances to your fitness to the people you keep around. All of these elements actually can affect how long you are able to exist on this planet and what kind of quality of life you're going to have throughout the process. Like, this is not just for fun and games. Living below your potential can kill you. So, really start to think about what your life means to you, what you want to do, and understand that the secret to changing your life is very obvious and simple. And it starts with facing your life up front with as much brutal honesty as you can. Okay, speaking of brutal honesty, I have a book, Real Help, An Honest Guide to Self-Improvement. This book has been described as one of the most honest self-improvement books you'll ever come across. Go scroll down below and buy that book. Even if you are not a reader, I have an audio version from the book so that you can hear and have the wisdom implanted to your mind through osmosis. Okay. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so that you can get brand new videos, leave a like on the video, drop some 2 cents, leave a comment so that I can converse back and forth with you and become your friend. Okay, I will see you on the next video.